Imagine a sport where every fraction of a second, every ounce of power, every degree of rotation matters.
Hmm.
We're talking ice hockey, a thrilling high-speed ballet on ice, but also, a game with a serious risk of injury.
Absolutely.
That's why protective gear is absolutely non-negotiable for player safety. We accept that armor as part of the game, but have you ever started to really consider what that crucial protection might be costing players in terms of their actual performance?
It's a fantastic tension, isn't it? Protection versus peak performance.
Yeah.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really groundbreaking study.
Okay.
It uses artificial intelligence to dissect exactly how ice hockey protective equipment restricts players' motion and impacts their game.
Wow.
It's a truly fascinating convergence of cutting-edge sports science, biomechanics, and advanced AI.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to get you well-informed on this surprising intersection.
Yeah.
The promise here isn't just knowing that gear restricts movement, but pinpointing exactly where and how.
Right, the specific.
Imagine what that level of precision could mean for making athletes safer and better all at once. So let's set the stage a little more. Ice hockey, as we know, demands immense speed, agility, and power from its players.
Mm-hmm.
The game's intensity, with those hard checks and fast collisions, unfortunately, leads to some of the highest injury rates in competitive sports.
It really does.
Thankfully, the evolution of protective equipment over the years has been incredibly successful in decreasing these injuries.
Definitely.
We see players walking away from crashes that would have been career-ending decades ago.
What's truly fascinating here, though, is that while injury reduction has been heavily studied and celebrated,
Right.
the scientific literature on the performance aspect of protective gear is surprisingly sparse.
Really? That seems like a big gap.
It is. Most previous research on hockey performance focused on things like skates or sticks, or simply the weight of the equipment.
Okay, just how heavy it is.
Exactly. This study aimed to go beyond just the pounds and ounces and quantify the kinematic effects, that is, how the gear changes the actual subtle movements players make.
Ah, the how of the movement itself.
Precisely. This gap in understanding is crucial because for true equipment improvement, you need to understand both sides of the coin, how gear protects and how it might hinder.
That makes perfect sense. If you're an athlete or even just an avid observer of sports, you understand that even a tiny advantage or disadvantage
Oh, yeah.
can make all the difference in a game decided by milliseconds or fractions of an inch.
Totally.
So finding those hidden restrictions, the subtle ways gear might be holding players back, could be incredibly valuable. It's about unlocking that full natural potential, not just covering them up. But how do you even begin to untangle something so incredibly complex?
Right.
We're talking about high-dimensional 3D data from athletes performing dynamic movers. It sounds messy.
It is. And traditional biomechanical methods often fall short when faced with the sheer volume and temporal dependencies of this kind of movement data.
Temporal dependencies, meaning how things change over time.
Exactly. Researchers usually have to pre-select variables, which means they're essentially guessing where to look.
Kind of limiting their focus from the start.
And risk missing critical insights.
Yeah. Okay. So traditional methods struggle. What's the new approach?
This is precisely why this study turned to machine learning. Artificial neural networks, or ANNs.
Right, AI.
They're exceptionally good at classifying patterns. So an ANN can easily tell the difference between movements made with and without equipment.
Okay, so it can see that there's a difference.
Yes. However, ANNs are often called black boxes
Uh-huh. I've heard that term.
because they tell you what they classified. For instance, this movement was done with equipment, but they don't explicitly tell you why or how they arrived at that decision. That lack of interpretability can be a hurdle for practical application, especially in sports science where why is key.
So the ANNs tell us there's a difference, but not why it exists. How do researchers actually get inside that black box to understand the how? That's the real trick, isn't it?
That's where a technique called layer-wise relevance propagation, or LRP, truly shines.
LRP. Yeah.
Imagine it like a flashlight you can point into the neural network.
Okay, interesting analogy.
It assigns relevant scores to every single input variable. Think about individual joint angles at specific moments in time.
Every little piece of the movement data.
Every piece. It then highlights precisely which parts of the movement contributed most to the ANN's ability to tell the two conditions apart.
Wow.
This allows researchers to pinpoint exactly where specific kinematic restrictions are occurring.
So it's not just flagging that a movement is different, but actually highlighting the specific parts of that movement that are being impacted.
Exactly that.
That's a level of precision we haven't had before. It's like going from saying, my car is acting funny, to the third cylinder spark plug is misfiring at exactly 3,000 RPM.
That's a great way to put it.
That's a game changer for a mechanic and, I guess, for equipment designers here.
Absolutely.
Let's dive into the study itself then to understand how they put this cutting-edge technology to the test.
Okay.
They gathered 20 active male ice hockey players,
Right.
a mix of 14 elite and 6 recreational players.
That mix is good. It gives a broader picture.
This blend ensured a good representation of different skill levels while keeping the focus on male hockey players.
And to capture their movement, they used a full-body system of 17 tiny sensors, what we call inertial measurement units, or IMUs.
IMUs, like the things in your phone?
Sort of, yeah, but much more specialized for biomechanics. These are like mini accelerometers and gyroscopes attached to the players.
All over their bodies.
All over. Recording detailed 3D kinematic data, specifically the 3D joint angles for 22 different joints. This gave them a complete picture of how the body moved in space.
22 joints. That's comprehensive.
Very.
They then had these players perform 4 complex representative ice hockey maneuvers. First, a sprint drill.
Yep. Straight line speed.
Players skated the long axis of the rink as fast as possible, with sprint time measured over 20 meters. Second, a linear crossover drill.
Same distance, different technique, more agility involved.
Covering the same distance but using crossover movements, again with time measured. Third, a slap shot.
Classic hockey move, max power.
Shooting from 5 meters, with players instructed to shoot as strongly as possible, and puck velocity measured by a radar gun.
Gotta measure that speed.
Finally, a power turn drill, where players skated figure-8 patterns between face-off dots, performing sharp turns.
Testing that edge work and turning capability.
And each drill was performed twice. Once with standard protective equipment, that's shin pads, shoulder pads, elbow pads, and a jock.
The usual upper and lower body stuff.
And once without. And it's important to note, you said skates, a helmet, gloves, and a stick were worn in both conditions.
Crucial point. That isolates the effect of the pads themselves.
Right, so you're not comparing wearing nothing to wearing everything, just the effect of those specific pads.
Exactly. It zeroes in on the variable they wanted to test.
Now, before even diving into the AI's deep insights, the initial direct results from these performance tests were incredibly clear, you said.
Indeed they were. The performance measures significantly decreased when players wore protective equipment. No big surprise there, maybe, but quantifying it is key.
Right. How much of a decrease?
For the sprint, participants were, on average, 1.64% faster without equipment.
1.64%? Doesn't sound huge, but...
But at the elite level, 1.64% faster means the difference between winning and losing a race to the puck.
Good point.
Looking at the numbers, that was a mean time of 2.72 seconds with equipment versus 2.68 seconds without.
Okay.
In the linear crossover, the difference was even bigger. Participants were, on average, 2.65% faster without equipment.
Over 2.5%. That's significant in agility drills.
Definitely. Mean time of 3.03 seconds with equipment versus 2.94 seconds without.
And the slap shot. Power must have taken a hit, too.
It did. For the slap shot, puck velocity, on average, decreased by 1.67% when shot with equipment.
Okay.
Going from 124.3 meters per second without gear down to 122.1 meters per second with it.
These aren't just minor fluctuations. For elite athletes, these percentages represent tangible differences in competitive advantage and capability.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the kind of margin that can determine the outcome of a game or even a career. It truly underscores why understanding these restrictions is so vital.
Exactly. It moves from anecdote, yeah, gear slows you down, to hard data.
So the performance data shows a clear hit, then the neural network itself. It could tell the difference between the movements.
Oh, yeah. It accurately distinguished between movements performed with and without equipment, with impressive accuracies ranging from 97.79% up to 100% across the different drills.
Almost perfect.
Which firmly confirmed that, yes, kinematic differences definitely exist. The way they move is different.
But the real breakthrough, as we discussed, was using LRP to open that black box and show where those differences are most pronounced. So what did LRP pinpoint? What were the main culprits?
The LRP analysis revealed really consistent patterns of restriction across all four movements, giving us truly actionable insights.
Okay.
Overall, the shoulder joint in all three primary directions of movement, that's forward and back, side to side, and rotational motions.
The whole shoulder complex, basically.
Pretty much. And the elbow joint in its forward and back and side to side planes showed the highest overall relevance scores.
So mostly upper body restrictions
Yeah,
highlighted.
the highest relevance, yes. This clearly indicates that the upper extremities are highly impacted by protective gear, especially those shoulder and elbow pads.
So the gear is really getting in the way of those big, powerful arm and shoulder movements. What about the lower body? You need speed from the legs.
Right. For the lower body, flexion and extension movements in the sagittal plane, that's basically bending and straightening your knees and hips, as if you're squatting.
The main power movements for skating.
Exactly, were most relevant. These movements are critical for generating power and speed in skating.
So restrictions there too.
Definitely. Interestingly, though, movements related to the ankle and the side-to-side, abduction-adduction, and rotational movements of the knee and hip.
More subtle movements.
Yeah, those consistently showed low contributions, meaning they were least impacted by the equipment, according to this analysis.
Okay, let's dive into a couple of specific examples revealed by the LRP analysis, because this is where the precision really shines. For the sprint drill, where players are pushing for maximum speed, what did LRP tell us?
Okay, for the sprint, LRP showed high relevance for knee flexion extension during the 60–75% mark of the stride cycle.
So mid to late stride.
Yeah, that's when the leg is recovering and preparing for the next push. There was also high relevance for hip flexion extension and shoulder flexion extension right at the very beginning, in the 0–10% range of the stride.
The initial push-off.
Right. Peaks of high contribution were visible in the early swing phase, right after the skate-off, and then again around the moment of ice contact. This tells us the gear impacts the initial powerful leg drive and also the recovery phase.
That's incredibly specific, getting down to percentages of the stride cycle.
That's the power of combining kinematics with LRP.
What about something like the slap shot, where you're trying to generate pure power? What was restricted there?
For the slap shot, the most relevant joint trajectory was the pronation-supination movement of the dominant elbow.
That twisting motion of the forearm.
Exactly, like turning a doorknob or screwing in a light bulb.
Hmm.
We also saw that shoulder and elbow flexion extension on the dominant side were significant.
Okay.
Crucially, peaks of relevance were observed during the loading phase of the shot, right before hitting the puck.
The wind-up.
Right, indicating that the gear restricts the arm as players wind up for maximum power. That crucial twisting and winding motion is being hampered.
So it's limiting that energy storage before release.
Seems like it.
This isn't just a general sense of restriction. We're talking about specific joint movements at specific moments in time that are most affected.
Yep.
That's truly actionable information for equipment designers. You can't get much more specific than that.
Exactly. It moves beyond just make it lighter or make it less bulky.
So what does this all mean for making improvements? How do we use this incredibly detailed map of restrictions to design better gear?
Well, by combining these LRP relevance scores with the actual joint trajectories and the measured performance data, concrete suggestions for equipment design really emerge.
Okay, like what?
For lower body improvements, equipment should be designed to better support and allow for increased flexion movements of the knee and hip.
More bending capability.
Exactly. This is crucial because research has consistently shown that faster skaters exhibit greater knee and hip flexion. Think of how much a speed skater bends their knees. That flexibility is key for power. The gear shouldn't fight that natural movement.
Makes sense. And the upper body. Shoulders and elbows were key.
Right. For upper body improvements, shoulder pads, in particular, should be redesigned to allow for more shoulder flexion, higher adduction, and higher internal rotation.
Adduction. That's bringing the arms in towards the body.
Yes. The ability for players to bring their arms closer to their torso is vital for turning movements and achieving higher angular acceleration.
Ah, like a figure skater pulling in their arms to spin faster.
Exactly. By effectively making themselves smaller in rotation, which physics calls reducing their moment of inertia. So gear that prevents that tucking in can hinder agility and rotational power.
But you mentioned complexity before.
Right. It's important to acknowledge the complexity here. For example, the study found contrasting needs for elbow pronation, that twisting and linear crossovers versus slap shots.
So what's good for one move might not be ideal for another.
Potentially. This suggests that optimal design might need to consider the most prevalent movements for a player's position or the primary skills needed for their role in the game. It's probably not a one-size-fits-all solution for every single joint and every single movement.
That adds another layer of challenge for designers. Tailoring gear, maybe.
Could be the future.
Imagine a future where protective gear isn't just about absorbing impact, but actively assisting natural, high-performance movements.
That's the dream, right?
This research takes us a huge step closer to that reality, moving beyond just safety to integrating performance enhancement right into the design.
It really opens the door for that conversation.
That's a powerful vision. But this also raises an important question. No deep dive is complete without a critical look at the science itself.
Always important.
What were some of the considerations or limitations that the researchers themselves identified?
Yeah, they were refreshingly open about the study's limitations, which is good science. One key point was a potential data pre-processing bias.
Why so?
They used a joint-dependent normalization method, basically a way to scale the data. But this method inherently favored joints with larger ranges of motion, like the shoulder or hip flexion extension.
The ones that move a lot.
Right, over those with smaller ranges. While it was a practical choice for this study's specific goal, it introduced a biomechanical bias that needs to be kept in mind when interpreting the results.
So it might have slightly overemphasized the bigger joint movements.
It's possible. It's like focusing your magnifying glass more intensely on the larger details, potentially missing some finer points in smaller joints.
Okay, what else?
Another limitation relates to the neural network functionality itself. ANNs sometimes find a good enough answer.
Right, the local minimum.
Exactly, what scientists call a local minimum rather than the absolute perfect solution, the global minimum. It's like finding a dip in the road when there's an even deeper valley just around the corner.
So the AI might not have found the absolute single best way to distinguish the movements.
It found a good way, maybe not the only way or the perfect way.
Yeah.
Also, for some movements like the slap shot, the limited amount of training data.
Only 20 players performing the task a few times.
Right. It could affect the network's ability to generalize findings perfectly. The researchers took precautions, like testing on unseen participants. But these are inherent considerations for this type of methodology. It's something to be aware of.
Understanding these nuances helps us interpret the results more completely and appreciate the ongoing evolution of scientific methodology.
Absolutely.
It's part of the scientific process, always striving for better and more refined approaches. Okay, so to recap, this deep dive has shown us how the powerful combination of artificial neural networks and layer-wise relevance propagation can reveal exactly how protective equipment impacts ice hockey players' movements and performance.
Yeah, it's a really cool application of AI.
We've learned that gear significantly reduces speed and power,
Measurably so.
primarily by restricting key flexion movements in the knees and hips and critical range of motion in the upper extremities, particularly the shoulders and elbows.
Those seem to be the hot spots.
So the takeaway for equipment designers is pretty clear then.
I think so. The takeaway is clear. Future changes to equipment should support more natural flexion movements of the knee and hip, which are vital for power and agility.
Let the body bend the way it wants to.
Essentially. Additionally, upper body gear, especially shoulder pads, needs to be designed to allow players to keep their arms closer to their torsos.
That adduction for turning and power.
Right, particularly during turning movements and powerful actions like shooting. This isn't just about safety anymore. It's about unlocking full athletic potential without compromising protection. That's the critical balance to strike.
Finding that sweet spot between armor and agility.
Precisely.
Here's a thought to ponder as we wrap up. If protective equipment were perfectly tailored to enhance natural movement while maintaining peak safety,
The ideal scenario.
how might that redefine records and strategy in high-impact sports like ice hockey? And what could it mean for injury prevention versus performance across all athletic endeavors? Could we see similar analysis applied elsewhere?
It really opens up possibilities across many sports, doesn't it? Football, lacrosse, anywhere pads are essential.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world where sports science meets AI.
My pleasure. Really interesting study.